According to the Student Village Student Debt Survey 2013, students are reliant on credit and appear to be living beyond their financial means. About 50% of students do not know how much interest they are being charged on their debt, and a bad credit record may impair their future credit purchases. Now, to talk more about this, we are joined by Ronen Aire, as the co-founder of Student Village. We have David Hesketh, a neuroscientist, as well as Senior Strategist at Investment Solutions Chris Hart. You at home can take part in our conversation. You may call us. Our contact details are at the bottom of our screens. You can also Facebook and tweet us. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. Ronen, possibly we could start with you in terms of the study, the survey that you've conducted, the demographics you use, and the findings.
So this study is an annual study that we do, and it's all about understanding how students spend and what they're spending on, as well as what kind of debt they're in. So we go around the country. A representative sample is about 350 for our market, so we decide let's look at double that amount. We look at all different years of study, all different. The pool is representative of the South African demographic in terms of the population. Gender is male. There's no bias between male and female, and really it is a representative sample of both of the whole student market, so it is national.
Chris, looking at it, the stat that comes out of the survey is that 50% of the students do not know the interest rate that they're being charged. Could this be down to a pure ignorance from students who are taking credit, or the lack of information and education around financial management?
Yeah, I think firstly, when one gets awarded credit, in other words, you apply and you actually get it, it's actually a wonderful feeling for the moment because you've got money to spend. And that's what often then happens, is that a lot of this debt is actually incurred for consumption reasons, which is the worst kind of way to incur debt. And it does then affect one's psychology going forward. It's critical to know the cost of it, because different institutions have different structures, and the cost can be prohibitive, especially if it's these personal loans that you're going to just roll over or whatever going forward, you know, because it suits, because it becomes highly profitable. But that credit record is actually very important, especially when one's starting off. And the debt then impacts people's career choices ultimately, because once you've studied, you have to then get a job. And then you're stuck in that job because of the debt. You can't make different decisions to say, here's an entrepreneurial activity, I'd like to follow that. Oh, we can't because there's the debt collector. And, to be in an entrepreneurial activity with a credit record, poor credit record, all of these things count. So when one has the opportunity, one needs to try and build personal capital rather than personal debt, because that gives people a lot more choice going forward.
David, Chris touched on something very important here, how an individual who is in credit, really, that affects their psychological progression going forward. Tell us a bit about this, the functionings of the brain around that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's very interesting is that just thinking in relation to what Chris was saying, is that there are 5 main regions of the brain, and 3 of those are devoted really to higher thinking, higher order thinking. And that's the right and the left hemisphere and the prefrontal cortex, which is right behind your forehead. Now, what's interesting is that when we talk about students, what are we doing when we're talking about students? The most important thing is we're training thinking, right? And yet, when we find that we're in these kinds of situations where kids are packing on the debt, right, is what happens is the brain actually shifts into the more primal regions, which is known as the brainstem, and the limbic system, or the emotional part of the brain. Anyone who's been in debt will know that it's like that you feel like you've got to survive, or this whole survival component to it, and you get very emotional about it. That's because what happens is the brain shifts or downshifts into the brainstem region, which is the part of the top of the spinal cord, and the shell that goes around that is the emotional system. And the brain functions from that area there. So what happens is your thinking then gets hijacked. And when it gets hijacked, what happens is you start into this emotional cycle of I'm in debt and I don't know what to do, and I'm in debt and I don't know what to do, and I need to get a job and I got to pay it off, et cetera, et cetera. So it shifts into your thinking, your whole thinking mindset shifts into a debt mentality.
And basically, how does that affect students in terms of their ability to continue with their academic progressions?
Sure. If you imagine now that you have this predominant thought, right? This predominant thought of I'm in debt and I'm worried about debt and what am I going to do and how am I going to get out of it? Because people will recognize that that's, of course, the thinking process that goes on, right? How is it then you are able to engage in the higher decision making, right? The ability to have insight, imagination, critique, problem solving, all of those things that we need to be able to engage with using the higher faculties of the brain and the higher parts of the brain in order to be able to do that. So in a certain way, it attenuates, it holds us back from being able to achieve our potential.
We'll touch base on, we'll continue our discussion. We just need to touch base with Cindy, who's in our newsroom area, just to get a view from our viewers at home on our Facebook page. Over to you, Cindy.
Now, the question that we asked you on Facebook is that how will the economy, or rather the debt from students, impact on the economy of the country? And Vusimuzi Tokota says it will affect their future negatively. Maybe it's about time the institution of education and banking come up with initiatives to educate students at an early stage on the importance of credit conduct and the associated risk. And he says government can also play some part in this. Bakis says we do need credit, but if we don't follow how we took it up, I suppose being more vigilant and reading the fine print as well. Mapoko says if banks were to do their best or to drive this message, we wouldn't be in this situation. And Mitchell says, how can they give students credit while they are not working? I suppose setting them up for failure anyway. And Marco says they must stop giving students credit cards because they don't have pay slips. Lastly, from Shakes, he says most of them only get excited, and this is referring to students, they only get excited when they get their credit card applications approved and never read the fine print. At the end of the day, they end up in a deep mess that normally leads them to starting life on the back foot due to failure of being vigilant. And those are your Facebook messages. You can continue this debate on social media.
Thanks for that, Cindy. I think what we can pick up from a lot of our viewers at home is, apart from the fact that they don't understand how students are given debt without having pay slips, and we'll touch on that, Chris, but it's also the level of education behind financial management and on issues of debt. And Ronen, maybe you can take us through that. Is there a lack of education offered to these students?
Absolutely. So the debt that we're talking about is actually discretionary debt, debt that I choose to have, not that I need. So the thing about our country, and specifically about students that are they're at their formative age, that 18 to 25-year-old period of your life, you're busy choosing who I am as an individual. And most students' image plays such an important part in that choice, what I look like, my external world. So they want to buy things. They really want a taste of the cheese now before they actually deserve it. And what's happening is, I think things have got better. In our 12 years in this market, if you asked 5 years ago, things were absolutely wild. And after the National Credit Act, things are actually regulated. So things, you have to prove affordability to get credit. You get a very small, between 200 and 500 Rand by being a student. And then according to your affordability, you can get more. Now, the biggest thing is that you can see now what people are saying is it's everyone else's responsibility to educate me, and everyone needs to play a part in this. But what the viewers are saying is it's their responsibility to teach me. It's also the viewers' responsibility to see what they're getting involved in. And there's no special cotton wool given to students. They want special deals, but they also want to be treated specially when it comes to credit. So it's up to everyone to get educated. So to educate students and the public, as well as to get students to get educated themselves.